The introduction. The quiet town of Eldridge had always seemed immune to the chaos of the outside world. Nestled between dense forests and a sweeping river, its modest homes and familiar faces painted a picture of tranquility. Yet beneath the mundane routine of life in Eldridge lay an undercurrent of secrets waiting to surface. The events of a single fateful evening would unravel the careful fabric of this community, giving rise to fear and suspicion. It began on a cool autumn night, with leaves rustling gently in the wind. A faint mist crept through the streets, swirling around the street lamps that flickered like dying stars. Residents, unaware of what lurked in the shadows, settled into their homes, oblivious to the brewing storm. The chirping of crickets synchronized with the distant sound of a lone owl, creating a false sense of security. Tamara Reed, a 32-year-old schoolteacher known for her vibrant passion for life, left the local bar after a casual night out with friends. Dolloped in humorous stories and laughter, she waved goodbye, her laughter dancing through the air as she made her way towards her car, parked just a block away. As she stepped onto the glistening pavement, Tamara felt the weight of the chill, an uneasy shiver creeping up her spine. Something was amiss. Eldridge would awaken to a nightmare the following morning gone that would leave questions unanswered, and a lingering unease hanging over its residents, reshaping alliances and igniting fear that would remain long after the autumn leaves fallen. The victim. Tamara Reed was more than just a teacher. She was a constellation of hope for her students, a friend to her coworkers, and the life of any gathering in Eldridge. With her chestnut hair tied back in a loose bun and her warm hazel eyes sparkling with kindness, she radiated an infectious enthusiasm that lifted spirits. Every Monday morning, she greeted her students with an upbeat energy, undeterred by the weariness of the weekend. Her passion extended beyond the classroom, where she volunteered at the community center, organizing events to foster creativity among the town's youth. Tamara had a knack for connecting with people, making them feel valued and heard. As the school's art club advisor, she encouraged her students to find their voice through creativity. Eldridge knew her well, both inside and outside the walls of Hillside Elementary School. And the thought of life without her felt inconceivable. But contradictions often lie just beneath the surface. Those closest to her knew of the struggles she wrestled with, the battles of self-doubt and loneliness that sometimes bled into her vibrant exterior. Recent whispers in the community suggested that Tamara had been grappling with a particularly dark phase, caught in a whirlwind of emotions after her recent breakup. The veneer of her joy seemed a little less polished, her laughter sometimes fragile, barely masking an underlying sorrow. On that harrowing autumn evening, as Tamara made her way home from a night of laughter and friendship, she was blissfully unaware that this moment, typically filled with hope and anticipation, would spiral into tragedy. Though unknown to her in life, Tamara would become a vital piece in a puzzle that society often overlooks. The narrative of the victim, the human experience lost amidst cold facts and statistics. The crime scene. The morning sun flared through the intertwining branches of the trees lining Elder Drive, casting patterned shadows on the sidewalk of stark contrast to the somber reality unfolding at the crime scene. Just a block away, as police tape cordoned off the area surrounding Tamara's parked car, the ripples of panic were felt sharply throughout Eldridge. Whispers morphed into urgent conversations as locals gathered, their faces marked by a blend of curiosity and fear. Detective Mike Hastings stood at the perimeter, his seasoned eyes taking in the early signs of chaos. The car door was ajar, revealing an interior filled with the remnants of Tamara's last night. A discarded purse, half-empty coffee cup, and a crumpled receipt from the bar where she had spent her evening. Dark stains marred the asphalt beneath the vehicle, an ominous testament to the night's unexpected turn. Hastings knew the stains were indicative of more than just a scuffle. They painted the gruesome picture of violence. As forensic teams archived every detail, the detective felt an unsettling tightness in his chest. He had seen countless crime scenes over his career, but the vibrant energy of Eldridge, intertwined with the chilling absence of Tamara, weighed heavily on him. The victim was not an abstraction. She was a pillar of the community, and yet all that remained was a vacant space filled with unanswered questions. Hastings navigated the confines of the roped-off area, carefully observing the surroundings. Flickering thoughts raced through his mind, searching for connections, motives, and suspects who could explain this senseless act. In a town where everyone knew each other, where friendship and camaraderie thrived, the audacity of such violence barely conformed to their reality. As the detectives coordinated with local law enforcement, the chilling truth dawned on them. A predator now lurked among the unsuspecting residents of their peaceful town, and it was only a matter of time before the facade of safety crumbled away. The early investigation. The air was thick with uncertainty as Detective Hastings convened a meeting at the Eldridge police station. Its walls lined with bulletin boards filled with paper mugs and community events. Officers and detectives alike shuffled in, their expressions drawn tight with the weight of the case that now loomed over their sleepy town. Hastings wasted no time, laying out the details of Tamara Reed's death with a deliberate focus, each word punctuated by the atmosphere of unease permeating the room. Witnesses reported seeing her leave the bar around 11 p.m. Hastings began, his voice steady as he outlined the timeline. We need anyone who might have seen her in those moments to come forward. Every detail counts. The officers divided responsibilities, some heading out to canvass the neighborhood, while others combed through the bar's security footage, searching for anything that might shed light on the hours leading up to Tamara's murder. The detective's own instincts buzzed with urgency as he considered who might have wanted to harm the beloved teacher. Was it a fleeting encounter gone wrong? Or did someone harbor a deeper, more sinister motive? As the team delved into interviews, Hastings listened intently to the accounts of Tamara's friends. They painted a picture of her vitality, yet remained guarded about the emotional turmoil in her life. A vague reference to a confrontational ex-boyfriend crept into the narrative, and with that lead, Hastings felt a flicker of hope. The tension among the group betrayed their fear that the tight-knit community could harbor a darkness none had anticipated. Across town, the rumblings of gossip began to churn through Eldridge like fog, seeping through trees. As worry and speculation seeped into hearts, friendships strained under the weight of uncertainty. The once warm smiles exchanged between neighbors turned hesitant, and curtains fluttered closed as secrets were whispered, amplifying the sense of isolation that replaced Tamara's exuberant presence. In a place where everyone knew each other's names, the question became, who among them had turned from friend to foe? The dead ends. Weeks melted away into a haze of frustration as the investigation into Tamara Reed's murder spiraled into a series of dead ends. Detective Hastings remained restless, poring over witness statements and surveillance footage. Yet each lead dissipated like smoke without tangible outcomes. Eldridge's idyllic exterior began to crack, exposing a landscape of secrets tangled in the lives of its residents. One evening, Hastings found himself back in the station, alone under the flickering fluorescent lights that buzzed like swarming insects. A glaring blue light from a nearby monitor illuminated the silhouettes of officers amid the paperwork. He replayed the bar security footage for the umpteenth time, searching for something. Anything that might illuminate Tamara's final moments. Her jovial laughter echoed in the background, dimming with a sense of impending tragedy. An eyewitness claimed to have seen a man lingering near Tamara's car, but the description provided was vague. Shadows obscured the details in the chaos of the night. Another lead pointed towards her ex-boyfriend, who turned out to have a verifiable alibi. Each new angle inevitably led back to the same conclusion. Scant evidence and unfounded suspicions surrounded them like a tightening noose. As the case trudged on, the townsfolk grew restless. Rumors morphed into blame, and the palpable tension permeated neighborhood gatherings. Friendships faltered under scrutiny. Laughter turned to whispers filled with veiled accusation. Without closure, the community started to fragment, sacrificing the trust and safety they once basked in. Hastings joined his team for a late-night briefing, exchanging weary glances that mirrored a collective sense of defeat. "We need a new approach," he muttered, running a hand through his hair in exasperation. The relentless cycle of dead ends had become not just a challenge for the case, but a personal battle against the encroaching dark that threatened to consume the town they all cherished. In Eldridge, every unanswered question became an echo of grief, bouncing off the walls and growing louder as the weeks dwindled, amplifying the fear that the truth may never fully emerge. A break in the case. Just as the tension in Eldridge reached a breaking point, a seemingly innocuous tip cracked the cold surface of the investigation. It came in the form of an anonymous phone call on a rainy Thursday morning, punctuating the rhythmic drumming of water on the pavement. Detective Hastings answered, his heart racing with the flicker of hope the day had lacked. The voice on the other end was gravelly and laced with fear. "I saw something that night. I didn't say anything because I didn't want trouble. But now, I think you need to know." Ola, identifying themselves only as Sam, mentioned a vehicle, a rusty pickup truck, parked suspiciously along Elder Drive. Ava had been watching Tamara before she left the bar that night, a fleeting sense of unease washing over the witness as they noticed the man's intense gaze. Hastings scribbled down every detail, the threads of the investigation weaving together with renewed energy. The detective dispatched officers to search for the truck based on the vague description. As the patrol cars weaved through the rain-soaked streets, Hastings felt the raw urgency of a lead reawakening the case. Before long, his team located a truck fitting the description, parked at a home scattered on the outskirts of town. Its owner, a local handyman named Greg Palmer. When officers approached Greg, the man seemed unhinged, his nervous demeanor not lost on Hastings. During questioning, Greg stammered about being at the bar that night, this alibi flimsy and contradictory. Hastings honed in on the inconsistencies, an intense feeling of déjà vu flooding him. Perhaps this was the breakthrough they had been waiting for. A shift in the cloud's promise of sunlight. As investigators combed through Greg's past and connections to Tamara, shocking revelations began implanting themselves into the investigation. Strained interactions, jealousy ignited by Tamara's rejection, and a history of troubling behavior floated to the surface, a paradigm shift that could point the way forward. Eldridge held its breath, the townsfolk clutching onto the glimmer of hope that justice might soon emerge from the shadowy depths of the unknown. The suspect, with the discovery of Greg Palmer's connection to Tamara Reed. The tension in the air thickened like storm clouds. Detective Hastings and his team began piecing together Greg's whereabouts and actions leading to the tragic. Each revelation crept forward with an ominous gravity. The handyman, often seen as a fixture of Eldridge, had become the focal point of the investigation. His seemingly harmless exterior now shadowed by deeper, more troubling nuance. Greg was known for his quiet demeanor. He was often found helping neighbors with odd jobs, a reliable repairman shrouded in a vibe of amiable normalcy. But Hastings soon unearthed layers of behavior that hinted at something far more sinister. Photos of Greg's past began to emerge, alongside accounts of his escalating obsession with Tamara, one that stemmed from her kindness mixed with his delusions. Furtive glances and unsolicited offers to assist her with home repairs turned into constant hovering, an unsettling fixation that refused to dissipate. When a search warrant was executed at Greg's home, Hastings and his team braced themselves for the potential discovery of grim evidence. Inside, they found the rusted pickup truck adorned with paint splatters matching the ones found at the crime scene. And there it was, hidden beneath a tattered tarp in his garage, a collection of seemingly innocuous items. Yet each one pulsated with significance, hinting at the presence of something darker. As the forensic team meticulously gathered evidence, Hastings confronted Greg, who awaited them at the station with a look of naive confusion. He claimed to know nothing of Tamara's fate, insisting he was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. But the detective's gut twisted with instinct. Something about Greg's demeanor dripped with deceit. The tentacles of circumstantial evidence wrapped around him tighter, entangling the facade Greg had carefully constructed over the years. Eldridge's fear morphed into suspicion as townsfolk steadily made the connection, transforming Greg from an ordinary handyman into someone capable of unimaginable violence. As Hastings pushed for clarity, the air thickened with the unmistakable weight of impending confrontation. Time was slipping away, justice waited to be uncovered, and the truth threatened to shatter what little remained of the town's fragile trust. The trial. As the date for Greg Palmer's trial drew near, a suffocating tension enveloped Eldridge, transforming the town into a cauldron of anticipation and dread. The courtroom erupted with mixed emotions as residents filed in, each one craving closure while grappling with the reality that their lives had been irrevocably altered. The wooden benches creaked under the weight of anxious bodies, and whispers flitted between attendees like nervous butterflies seeking refuge. Detective Hastings sat near the front, his normally steadfast demeanor betraying the heavy burden he carried. The trial was as much a testament to the investigation as it was to the devastation ripple through the community. As the trial commenced, the prosecution painted a harrowing portrait of Greg Palmer, elucidating his obsessive behavior surrounding Tamara and sketching a timeline that illustrated his increasing volatility. Photographs of the crime scene were displayed, each image serving as a grim reminder of the life snuffed out too soon. Greg's defense lawyer argued heavily for reasonable doubt, casting a wide net of uncertainty around the evidence, yet managing to invoke sympathy for a man portrayed as erratic yet harmless. They painted Greg as a victim of circumstance, a local handyman facing unfathomable odds, even suggesting Tamara's actions may have provoked an unfortunate misunderstanding. Hastings silently fumed at the audacity. It felt as though the very fabric of truth was being twisted into a distorted narrative. As days turned into weeks, witnesses lined up to deliver their accounts, moments stitched into fabric of the trial that seemed to mesmerize the entire town. Tamara's friends and colleagues testified about her kind heart, recounting tales of laughter that felt achingly distant. With every word spoken, the courtroom grew heavier, the emotional toll echoing back to the idyllic afternoons of a happier Eldridge. Hastings watched intently as Sarah, a former co-worker of Tamara's, broke down on the stand, describing her lingering dread of how someone could harbor such dark intentions, despite the bright gleam surrounding the school team. The raw display of emotion galvanized even the jury, compelling them to fathom what Tamara could have been feeling on her final night, while illuminating the bitter truth behind their roiling fear. Finally, after an exhaustive presentation of evidence and emotional testimonies, the jury was sent to deliberate. Outside, the canvas of Eldridge hung heavy with uncertainty. Every resident clung to the hope that justice, at long last, would rise from the ashes left by violence. The aftermath. The verdict reverberated through Eldridge like a thunderclap, carrying with it an exhalation of collective relief fused with haunting sorrow. As the jury pronounced Greg Palmer guilty of Tamara Reed's murder, the courtroom erupted into a mix of gasps and suppressed sobs. For those who had witnessed the trial's emotional roller coaster, the reality of it all sank in. A somber chapter had come to a close, but the scars etched on the community's consciousness would linger for years to come. In the weeks that followed, the town struggled to navigate the schism created by the shocking events. The once bustling streets carried an undercurrent of unease, as neighbors became wary of each other. Eldridge, which had prided itself on its sense of unity, now bore the weight of whispered conversations and sidelong glances. Trust hung by a thread, especially as the specter of violence still loomed large in their thoughts. Detective Hastings walked the familiar streets, often finding himself reflecting on the fractures within their tight-knit community. He paid visits to Tamara's favorite haunts, the coffee shop where she brewed joy into her mornings, the park where laughter once echoed under the trees. Each place felt eerily void of her vibrant presence, and he could feel the memories of happiness corroding into sorrow. A memorial service was held at Hillside Elementary School, attended by those who loved Tamara and craved to honor her legacy. Flowers adorned the space, and portraits of her radiant smile adorned the walls, reminders of a life filled with purpose. Stories shared resonated with the town's collective grief, celebrating Tamara's spirit while grappling with the harsh reality of loss. With time, initiatives began to blossom in Eldridge, fueled by Tamara's memory. Community programs emerged, promoting awareness about violence against women and support systems for those in distress. They sought to heal not only from the tragedy that had befallen them, but also to cultivate an environment where prevention and understanding prevail. Yet for Hastings, the aftermath was not just about closure, it was a persistent reminder of the importance of vigilance within a seemingly inviolable community. The haunting echoes of unspoken pain lingered, whispering that darkness can reside in even the most welcoming embrace. As he took in the remnants of the town's past and the budding promise of its future, he remained prepared to safeguard the fragile threads of connection they sought to repatch. Reflection. Months later, as autumn leaves transformed into a tangle of browns and reds, Detective Hastings stood on the banks of the river that curled around Eldridge. He watched the water ripple with the soft pull of the current, a mirror reflecting the changes wrought by both time and tragedy. What had once been a serene flow now felt heavy with the weight of memories intertwined with loss. Hastings took a deep breath, inhaling the crispness of the air that heralded winter, and closed his eyes. He found himself reflecting on the dichotomy of human nature, the beauty of connection, wrapped tightly around the potential for unimaginable darkness. Tamara Reed had embodied the very essence of community spirit, yet that very spirit had faltered in the face of violence. The juxtaposition hurt a little more with each passing day. He had unearthed the depths of despair while striving to uphold the hope for tomorrow. Eldridge was healing, but the scars would remain. Hastings acknowledged that justice held many forms, a delicate interplay between the desire for retribution and the need for understanding. The throbbing pain of Tamara's absence would always echo in the hearts of those she had touched. This was a lesson he carried forward on, that inspired him to champion awareness, compassion, and vigilance within the community he called home. As he lingered at the water's edge, Hastings vowed to keep Tamara's memory alive and to ensure her legacy transcended the tragedy that had irrevocably altered so many lives. With renewed determination, he turned back towards the path leading into town, embracing the light that heralded a new dawn, filled with the promise of justice, but forever shaded by the loss of the vibrant life that once brightened Eldridge.